The Ladder of Inference is a great tool. It's a tool that helps you slow down your thinking before you race off and take action on a conclusion that hasn't been sufficiently tested. There's a lot in there, so let me slow down and put the Ladder of Inference in perspective. If we are inclined to think about a customer in a certain way, or another department in the company a certain way, those people in finance, those folks in IT, those people in HR, if we're inclined to think about different departments or different customers or other key stakeholders in a certain way, we sometimes get entrapped in that frame that we put them in, and we look for data to reinforce it. That's one of the dangers of getting locked in our own thinking and not really being objective about other data that may in fact be helpful. And so one of the things that the Ladder of Inference allows us to do is to walk down the different steps on the ladder. Before we take this action, let's walk down the Ladder of Inference. Now we've drawn a particular conclusion. We've drawn the conclusion that we should go with option A. We had a choice between option A and B, but we've decided to go with option A. Before we make that decision, can we all just walk back down the Ladder of Inference and let's take a look at the assumptions that sit under the decision that we made. And let's have a robust conversation about the assumptions. We often don't test assumptions. Assumptions drive all of our decision making. Any decision you make during the course of the day, whether it be the decision to wear a red shirt versus a blue shirt, a decision to take the back roads to work or the decision to get on the motorway, the decision to have a flat white for breakfast or tea. All of those decisions are supported by certain assumptions that we make. Certain assumptions we make about what's going to work. And while those assumptions have served us well, having a tea or a coffee, that's minor, but whether or not we should go with option A or B as it affects really the growth model of our organization, that's an important decision. Shouldn't we really get under the assumptions that are driving that? And once we start putting assumptions on the table, we realize that some of them are pretty precarious. They're pretty wobbly. And so if we got wobbly assumptions that sit under a decision, goodness gracious, we're putting the business at risk. So it is important to come back down and take a look at assumptions that we're making about consumers. The assumptions may have been right, may actually have been correct 10 years ago. But are our assumptions outdated now? And therefore, they put the business at risk because we haven't updated our own thinking. That's really what the Ladder of Inference is about. The Ladder of Inference is a fun tool as well. Have you ever been sitting in a restaurant and you're waiting for your party to arrive? You're the first there. And so you're just sort of sitting around. You're just casually scanning the room. And at a table across the room there are two people sitting there. And you're just sort of checking them out. It's two women sitting at the table, and you're checking them out and you're trying to sort of figure out what the relationship is. We always do that, right? And they're sort of sitting across from each other like this. Are they colleagues? Are they sisters? Are they best friends? We're checking out what they're wearing. We're checking out sort of the dynamic between them. And we sort of say, ooh, they look like work colleagues. They're dressed sort of professionally, etc. They're work colleagues. And then another person joins them at the table. It's a guy. And he sits down next to one of the women and he puts his arm around her. And you go, oh, okay, work colleagues? No, they probably are a couple. You ever done this at a restaurant? So that person drops down at the table and he puts his arm around her. And you go, okay, I don't think we're colleagues now. Maybe the two of the women are work colleagues, but I think that's her boyfriend. That's where we are with that. And then another guy joins the table. And the two guys embrace and give each other a big hug. And then they sit down. And you're going, wonder what the relationship is now between these four people. That's racing up the ladder of inference based on frames that we put around how people are, how they're dressed, how they're interacting, and those types of things. That's a harmless example, but it's an example of how the ladder of inference works. The ladder of inference is something that enables us to make meaning as quickly as possible. But that's the danger in business, is that sometimes we make meaning too quickly. And it's worth slowing the thinking down, coming back down the ladder of inference, getting ourselves grounded in the data, the assumptions we're making about that, and the conclusions we draw. That's the ladder of inference.